Hello, welcome to the Argo course. My name is Mohammad and I'm very happy to be here. In this session, I want to talk about Argo rollout. This is another tool of Argo project. Okay, let's go to the note. I want to type all the topics of this session and explain each of them. Okay. The first one is, what is Argo rollout? Argo rollout is a Kubernetes controller and set of CRDs which provide advanced deployment capabilities such as blue-green deployment and canary deployment, and also progressive delivery features to Kubernetes. These are the most important features of Argo rollout. But why Argo rollout? There are some differences between two different objects. The first object is the native Kubernetes deployment object and Argo rollout. There are some differences between these two different objects. The native Kubernetes deployment object supports the rolling update strategy, which provide a basic set of safety guarantees, such as readiness probes during an update. However, the rolling update strategy faces many limitations. Limitation of deployment object. Limitations of deployment object. Few controls over the speed of the rollout, inability to control traffic flow to the new version, no ability to query external metrics to verify an update, and unable to automatically abort and roll back the update. These are the limitations that we have in Kubernetes deployment object. But what are the features of Argo rollouts? Features of Argo rollouts. Blue-green update strategy, canary update strategy, ingress controller integration, service mesh integration, and also automated rollbacks and automated promotions. These are the most important features of Argo rollout. Okay. The next topic is, what are the use cases of Argo rollouts? Let's imagine that a user wants to run last-minute functional tests on the new version before it starts to serve production traffic. Blue-green deployment strategy. With the blue-green strategy, Argo rollouts allows user to specify a preview service and active service. Active service and also preview service. The rollout will configure the preview service to send traffic to the new version while the active service continues to receive production traffic. Once a user is satisfied, they can promote the preview service to be the new active service. It was about blue-green deployment strategy. The next use case is about canary deployment strategy. For example, a user wants to slowly give the new version more production traffic. They start by giving it a small percentage of the live traffic and wait a while before giving the new version more traffic. Eventually, the new version will receive all the production traffic. With the canary strategy, the user specifies the percentage they want the new version to receive and the amount of time to wait between percentages. These are the most used cases of Argo rollouts. I want to mention the available deployment strategies. Deployment strategies. First of all, let's move on to the deployment strategies of the native Kubernetes deployment object. We have two different deployment strategies for the native Kubernetes deployment object. The first one is rolling update. A rolling update slowly replaces the old version with the new version. As the new version comes up, the old version is scaled down in order to maintain the overall count of the application. This is the default strategy of the deployment object. The second deployment strategy for the native Kubernetes deployment object is recreate. A recreate deployment deletes the old version of the application before bring up the new version. As a result, this ensures that two versions of the application never run at the same time, but there is downtime during the deployment. But what are the deployment strategies for Argo rollouts? Argo rollouts. The first one is rolling update. We have rolling update in Argo rollouts as well as the native Kubernetes deployment object. This is the mutual deployment strategy between these two different objects, Argo rollouts and Kubernetes deployment object. The second one is blue-green deployment strategy. Okay. A blue-green deployment, sometimes referred to as a red-black, has both the new version and old version of the application deployed at the same time, as you can see in step 2. We have two different versions of our application in the cluster, application version 34 and 35. During this time, only the old version of the application will receive the production traffic. This allows the developers to run tests against the new version before switching the live traffic to the new version. In step 3, switch traffic to the new version of our application. And in step 4, the previous version has been deleted and the load balancer service is pointing to the new version of our application. This is about blue-green deployment strategy. The next strategy is canary deployment strategy. A canary deployment exposes a subset of users to the new version of the application while serving the rest of the traffic to the old version. As you can see in step 2, new version used by 10% of users, application version 35. Once the new version is verified to be correct, the new version can replace the old version. This picture above shows a canary with 2 stages, 10% and 33 stages, 33 of traffic goes to new version. But this is just an example. With Argo rollouts, you can define the exact number of stages and percentages of traffic according to your use cases. Okay, it was about the available deployment strategies and in the native Kubernetes deployment object as well as Argo rollouts. Okay, I want to mention all the components related to Argo rollout. Components, Argo rollouts. The first one is Argo rollout controller. This is the main controller that monitors the cluster for events and reacts whenever a resource of type rollout is changed. The controller will read all the details of the rollout and bring the cluster to the same state as described in the rollout definition. The second component is rollout resource. The rollout resource is a custom Kubernetes resource introduced and managed by Argo rollout. It's mostly compatible with the native Kubernetes deployment resource, but with extra fields that control the stages, thresholds, and methods of advanced deployment methods, such as canaries and blue-green deployments. Note that Argo rollouts controller will only respond to those changes that happen in rollout sources. It will do nothing for normal deployment resources. This means that you need to migrate your deployments to rollouts if you want to manage them with Argo rollout. And also it means that you can install Argo rollouts in a cluster that is also deploying application with alternative methods. There is no conflicts between different methods. This is the Git repository of Argo rollouts. This is the original, and this is the main Git repository of Argo rollouts. There are some directories here, and one of them is examples. As you can see, let's click on it. And these are some examples related to rollout resources. For example, click on our rollout-bluegreen.yaml. As you can see here, its kind is rollout. And its strategy is blue-green. So we are using blue-green strategy for this rollout resource. Its replica, its revision history limits, and it's compatible with the native Kubernetes deployment resource, as you can see here, but we have some extra fields here, such as a strategy. And its kind is different. Its kind is rollout. In this example, we have two different services. The first one is active service, and the second one is previous service because we are using blue-green deployment strategy in this example. Okay. The second component, the third component is ingress or service. This is the mechanism that traffic from live users enters your cluster and is redirected to the appropriate version. Argo-rollout use the standard Kubernetes service resource, but with some extra metadata needed for management. Argo-rollouts is very flexible on networking options. First of all, you can have different services during a rollout that go only to the new version, only to the old version, or both. Okay. The next component is analysis template. But what is that? Analysis is the capability to connect a rollout to your metric provider and define a specific threshold for certain metrics that will decide if an update is successful or not. For each analysis, you can define one or more metrics queries along with their expected results. A rollout will progress on its own if metric queries are good, rollback automatically if metrics show failure, and pause the rollout if metrics cannot provide a success or failure answer. And the last component is metric providers. Argo-rollout includes native integration for several popular metrics providers that you can use in the analysis resources to automatically promote or roll back a rollout. Very good. It was about the components of Argo rollout. Okay, let's go to install Argo rollouts in the Kubernetes cluster. Because of that, I type Argo-rollouts Installation. Let's click on the first result. The first step is creating a namespace called Argo-rollouts. Because of that, I copy this command and paste it here. So when I type kubectl get ns, you can see that we have a new namespace called Argo-rollouts. The second step is applying this path into Argo-rollouts namespace. So I copy this command and paste it here. Very good. So when I type kubectl get all-n Argo-rollouts, these are all the resources related to this tool. Very good. The next step is optional, installing kubectl plugin. The kubectl plugin is optional, but is convenient for managing and visualizing rollouts from the command line. This plugin has been installed in my environment, so I don't need to install it again, but I recommend you to install it in your Kubernetes environment. Because of that, copy this command and paste it here. If you are using Linux and if your platform is Linux, you need to replace Darwin with Linux. Replace Darwin with Linux if you are using Linux, okay? This is so important. And also make executable this file, and finally move this file to user local bin path with this name, kubectl argo-rollouts. And to verify your installation, copy this command and paste it here. And it shows that this plugin has been installed in your environment. And my platform is Linux AMD64. Very good. This tool, Argo-rollout, has a dashboard. If you want to connect to its dashboard, please click on dashboard here. And then copy this command, kubectl argo-rollout dashboard. Okay? Click on it. Paste it here. Kubectl argo-rollout dashboard. And it returns a message. Argo-rollouts dashboard is now available at this path. Localhost. So I copy this path and paste it here. Very good. And yes, this is the dashboard of Argo-rollouts. It's now empty because there is no rollout resources here. If you deploy your first rollout resource here, it shows your resource. Okay. It was about installing Argo rollouts in your environment. That's enough for this session. Have a good day and see you soon.